Welcome to Access Church. We're stoked you're with us. Before we get into the teaching today, grab your Bible, your note sheet, and maybe your favorite beverage, and be ready to receive all that God has for you today.
I absolutely 100% see color.
Yeah.
I see it. And I think it's great that we all come from these different backgrounds. But the country is hurting, man. The black community is mad, is frustrated, is pissed off. And everything everybody is saying isn't right. And everything everybody is saying isn't always wrong. I don't know. I don't know what to say, what to do. I have a white wife at home and some little mixed kids getting ready to go off to college. And it's like...
Does that bring up discussion?
Oh, brother, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Does it bring up discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I know my wife as Barbara, not as the white female.
Right.
She's Barbara. You're Brian.
Yeah.
So I love the community of where we're at.
Yeah.
I'm not in El Segundo, so I don't know, but I know small town SoCal here in Temecula, Marietta. My kids didn't grow up with a lot of the stuff that I dealt with growing up in Mississippi.
Well, that's where we balance out. We were talking about this. Has progress been made? Because sometimes we can feel like, and maybe we do feel like, are we going back to square one? Are we going back to square one? Or progress has been made, but we gotta, some of these things bubble up, areas where we gotta continue to progress. And I'm curious, or do we feel like, no, if I'm honest, progress hasn't been made?
If I'm honest, I would say no.
Give me your
I say
perspective
that
on
we've
it.
done really good with masking,
Okay.
putting on a good mask, putting on a good face to show that progress has been made. But if you look at the economical disparity, if you look at the social constructs, if you look at the news, I never see African American cops physically trying to hurt someone of a different race.
Mm.
But I'm consistently bombarded with other cops, of other, white cops,
Right.
constantly bombarding African American people,
Yeah.
period, and especially the darker ones.
Mm.
If you look at that, I don't think we made that much progress. I think it's a heart issue. I know it's a heart issue. I know that it has never gone away.
Mm.
We had the deep slavery, then you had the systemic racism, then you had the Jim Crow's law, and then you had all of these other things that were going on. And I think we've done really good at just kind of keeping the bubble down, and now it's been like a pressure cooker. You done pushed it down, and now you're seeing it coming out. Whatever you put in is gonna come out. And I think you're starting to see it. So it may have looked like everything was fine because fear. If you go out there and there's no consequences for your action, and you're constantly seeing your race die and get brutally murdered, then that fear will stabilize anything.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I think you get so scared that you're paralyzed, you can't move.
Yeah.
You can't do the right thing. You're scared to go out there and do like Dr. King did. What happened to him? Standing on the balcony, and there you go. Bam. You shoot him. I mean, it's like, who else gonna want to take that reign?
Mm-hmm.
He even said it. Like any other man, I'd like to have a life full of longevity.
Mm-hmm.
But if that is not in my plan, then I'm gonna do God's will. So it's like, when you hear that kind of stuff, then no one else wants to take up that baton to try to say, okay, we still got a problem, but
Do you feel like
will I live?
And am I hearing you right as far as then, let's say within the Black community, that there is a vacuum of leadership like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because of that fear? Am I hearing you right? And as
Yeah.
far as then it creates a fear that then things stay masked because there's no leader taking it progress.
That's what you're hearing.
Okay.
And I think we dropped the ball as far as all of us together, because we should have taken that ball and ran with it. You see it. We see it because you can hear leaders now saying, yep, there is a disparity. That didn't just come up out of the blue. Everybody knew there was a disparity, but no one wanted to talk about it until our little young people got out on the street and start saying, hey.
I think that takes us to, this is where I see at least the conversation where these different views of like even within disparity and how do we solve certain things, right? As far as there's a discussion where they were saying, okay, but how do we look at disparity as far as within the Black community, as far as the difference, like 2-parent homes versus 1-parent homes, where the disparity was almost negligent. And I don't have the stats in front of me, so this was a discussion panel.
Right.
So then that's when my brain's like, man, we got,
Yeah.
you know, keep families married.
Yep. Gotta keep families together.
Family, you know, nucleus together. I see churches that have been broken down where all of a sudden you take a strong faith out of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say this on almost all ethnicities, where the faith has been taken out to speak into our lives, right? So we got all these things. Is it a complex thing where there's issues as far as cross races within each races? And that's where it's like, we got to take care of some, like the masking. What does it mean to unmask? If it was like, all right, racism is just as bad, what would be some things for you to be like, this needs to get unmasked? Is it a heart thing, or is it policies and procedure and lies? Like, what is it in your mind? And I know you're just speaking for yourself, but I hear that and it sounds big to me, where it's like, okay, what do we do to begin to unmask?
Big.
What would that look like to unmask those things and begin to move forward? Or is that just something you're like, I don't know, I just know it's happening?
Just like you said, the family structure has to be strong. You gotta get back to the basic of the household. You gotta get it taught right in school. When I was in school, all we saw when they was talking about Black history was people hosing black people down, or the slavery times, or in bondage and chains and stuff. How does that make anyone walk out of a classroom and feel like they're important or they matter? We got to get all of those things right. And instead of showing all the different Black inventors, what they contributed to society, we tend to just focus right there on that category, you know, of the bad side. What does that do to an individual when they walk out amongst their peers? How proud of themselves are they when they're showing that everybody else, Benjamin Franklin developed the light bulb or whatever. Well, who helped him? There were African Americans that developed the laminate in it. I mean, but do we even talk about that? You never even know that.
So you're saying even in education?
Even in the education, so you got your homes,
and-
you got your education, you got your church, you got your political systems, you got your social constructs, you got your economical disparity.
Yeah.
It's and then the police.
Yeah.
You got it all over. So it's like we're constantly been phased. Like Brian said, he's fearful of now. That fear that you experience, I experience every single day of my life. I'm fearful every time I walk out. Even in a little small Marietta, I walk out and people calling out names to me as they go by Clinton Keith. And I'm just walking, just doing things that any normal person would do. I don't deserve that. I've not said anything to this person or that person to have a belligerent name. I don't even walk anymore unless I have my sons or somebody walk with me. I don't like to walk by myself. And I love walking. I should have that privilege and that freedom to feel like I can just walk out without that fear. Anytime my sons and them walk out of the house, I'm terrified that if they're gonna come back or not. If I'm gonna get a call, if I'm gonna have to go and bail them out of jail, and Lord help if I have to do something even worse than bailing them out of jail. It's just like, and they're great kids. They've been raised correctly. They're model citizens. I shouldn't have to be so fearful. And so the fear that you experience, I live, breathe, eat, sleep, dream, that kind of fear. And then you talk about what lessons of African American life, stress. You look it up, our numbers are astronomically high. Because this is stress.
This is where this discussion is so important. I'll speak for myself. That's where sometimes I think where I fault is I'll hear issues like this, and to me it becomes very, kind of intellectualize it.
Right.
Well, how do you solve things like this? If I'm honest, I probably have sensed interactions I walked away, I'm like, oh, that didn't really go well. And I think it was because, and I could be saying this wrong, so if you guys have felt this way, but I'm like, I think they wanted empathy, not my questions and debate at times.
Mhm.
As far as, because I don't have that fear, my kids don't have that fear. And so just to be able to stop and say, I feel like sometimes we're getting in these intellectual debates in society and people are like, wait, stop. The reason we're not endorsing the writing,
Right.
but there needs to be an expression of, hey, I see you're angry and I feel, and if that doesn't happen, then it feels like we almost have to start with empathy before we get too far into this. Yeah.
I agree.
And I feel like if I'm honest, I probably fall short because when you don't feel it, it's like, as a pastor, I deal a lot like with abuse people. And with abuse, if you start trying to problem solve too, they're just hurting. And it's like, you just don't try to call it their behavior right now. You just got to deal with that, and then healing comes later on.
Yeah.
Is that fairly accurate? We got to watch ourselves in our interactions of trying to be like, hey, let's do cross-cultural talk. And all of a sudden we intellectualize and people are like, wait a second, you're not feeling me at all. And I'm out. I'm not going to share now.
Yeah,
Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah. I would say sometimes you just, I think right now we don't, and I say we, I think we as a black culture, as a black community right now, sometimes I don't want you to ask me about how we fix it. Next Wednesday, I may be comfortable with hearing it, but at some point, I don't want you to say, okay, how do we fix this problem? Because it's deep.
Yeah.
It's really deep. I don't know how you fix it, because the thing about it, you can't go back and change what happened, but I can create a new history. And I think that's where we're at, is starting in conversations like this to help to create a new history, to bring up these conversations, because historically, nobody was willing to do this honestly.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the problem. From the white pastor that has the mixed church to the NFL owners who are like, everybody know that, probably, and I'll take a guess, 70-80% of the NFL is made up of black guys.
Yeah.
So, if you really wanted to stop something, we could stop the NBA. We could stop the NFL.
And they're talking about it and going to black colleges as far as like, why don't we support more black colleges and take all that money that goes to.
And I hate to go there, but I mean, if
it's happening. It's
if
not,
4 or 5 star recruits say, you know what?
Yep. Yeah.
I'm gonna go support my HBCU because that's what it was before.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna go to the Alabamas, and we're not gonna go to the LSU. Go Tigers.
All right.
But I mean, if that starts to happen on a larger scale, then you are going to have to change. And it's going to have to be a change. And people are going to have to be like, okay, and again, I'm so glad that we're now saying the black community, because again, just me personally, the whole African American thing, I've been to, Marine Corps, been to Africa. I know how they felt, about some things. They were like, you're an American. You have nothing to do with what happened over here. So I'm kind of like, so the fact they say the word black is coming, I'm like, yes, all right, we're back. Things can happen. Things can change. And I think it's starting with people finally saying, we wasn't kneeling because of the national anthem. We was in the Marine Corps. We was in the Navy. We was in the Army. We were firefighters. We were cops. It had nothing to do with the national anthem. What it had to do with was what was going on.
Yeah.
And it was a very quiet, silent protest. And I love the friends of mine who've now come out and said, bro, now I see exactly what my man Colin Kaepernick was saying. He was like, I see it now. And I'm like, great.
Let me ask you this. Let's just get real. So, because I think we talked a little bit about this, right? Did we talk about Colin Kaepernick and or with that? This is where personally I get convoluted. Is Martin Luther King Jr. said that, right, it's the content of character, not the color of skin, that's what we're shooting for. And so when I look at people leading, I'm looking at the content of their character. Like, so him kneeling, saying, to me, it's like, that's the beauty of America, you know, and freedom and things like that. And, but am I missing the point? When I think for me, I was like, yeah, that's fine. And then when it was cops with the pig on it, that I thought was when he wore those in a game. And that's when I think it became really divisive. I think he was kind of like riding the line. And then I remember the news, you know, just blew up. But it was so, it incited a lot. But I also know sometimes to make a point, what I've heard is sometimes you gotta incite to make a point. But I think at what point then do we lose truly? And so that was tough for me because, again, as a pastor, like, I've got to love everybody, all different colors. I've got police officers, good-hearted police officers, firefighters, things like that. I saw immediately what happened to them as far as all of a sudden that community, and even now when I talk to police officers, fearful, like, we're going to get, like, they're feeling. And so what would you say to me, like, when I look at that, I go, yeah, Colin Kaepernick, yeah, that's cool. Then I'm like, man, I can't get behind that. And so now, am I throwing the baby out with the bathwater, or what does that look like when it's like, man, I just wouldn't agree with that. I wouldn't agree with anyone did that as far as calling out people that they put their lives on the lines every day. I could be wrong, most of them. I think there's always bad apples and everything.
Right.
When you hear that, especially, let's be honest, from a white person, I just said that. What are the things that come up as far as you might be missing this, or I hear you here, or that's baloney?
When we talked a week ago about the situation, him wearing the pig socks, I completely agree with you. I think there could have been a better way of him trying to get the message across, especially with after taking the knee. But I feel like the media and the news pinpointing on that is just diverting away the attention on why he actually took the knee in the first place. So it's to get your mind off of, okay, he did something that could be monumental, so I start a movement, and then he just wore pig socks, and now it's like, all right, he's completely bad. Like his right, or when he took the knee, it wasn't with good intent on trying to fix a problem that's going on. So I think it's just a mechanism that they try to do to try to like not get the momentum of like the social injustices that African Americans were facing at the time and are still facing currently, and just pinpointing on something that doesn't really matter in a sense. Like, yeah, he wore some socks.
Brian, from your experience, there's a brotherhood and a sisterhood within, law enforcement, and I would maybe rightfully or wrongfully equate it with the military as far as you're going through intense experiences. Just your experience in seeing this relationship that, and obviously geographically it can vary and all those kinds of things. So whether it's within the community you worked or just as you talk to law enforcement or your experiences, even just, what is that like as far as just here's what I'm hearing, I could be off, amount of police officers that is truly racist. Like, they might not say it, but they're gonna rough up someone black a little bit more, versus some cops start off good is what I hear, and then if you're working in a certain community, you get jaded real quickly when it's that repetitive of we're dealing with the same thing, and then you begin to view everybody that way. That's another thing that I hear, versus we just need better training. These reactions and responses, these are untrained people overreacting, and it's happening to a certain minority community more. You have all these things that at least I've heard. Any perspective, or are you kind of like, man, I'm just as confused even though I've been in law enforcement? Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Yes. So I just, getting your perspective, I haven't been there.
It's interesting. It's like growing up, in the conservative family with the dad who was just like, it's this way, and then getting hired at a police department that's very paramilitary. I mean, right next to Camp Pendleton. They the city and the police department did a good job of hiring, across the board, cross-cultural. I mean, there was a lot of, big black community in there. It's a big Samoan community because there's so many Samoans in the back gate area. We had Asians, we had females.
Right.
There was some black female officers there. There was some, I think a couple Asians. Yeah. So they did a really good job. The other thing that they did, and Lieutenant Joe Young he was part of this cultural diversity when it came, and it was like, okay, you are going to get a certain amount of cultural diversity a year. It's mandated. And it was interesting, of course, we're like, we don't like training, that type of thing. Having gone through it for so many years, every single year, absolutely is necessary. And if these police departments aren't doing this, they're wrong.
They're missing out.
Yeah. For instance, there was in the Asian community, if you're going to a domestic violence call or something like that,
Yeah.
the protocol is separate the two parties. More importantly, if it's a combative situation, separate the combatives, with one another. In the Asian community, it is a sign of disrespect to take the wife away from the viewpoint of the husband, let alone take her in the bedroom.
Gotcha.
Didn't even think twice about it. Now, I don't know if I did that or not. I probably did because I came across many, in the Asian community.
Right.
And if they're a one-bedroom apartment, my partner's talking to the husband,
Yeah.
or I'm talking to the husband, my partner's talking to the wife, opposite of each other, because we need to get separate statements from one another. And no, big time no. You just, had I not gone through that training, you would have violated some culture there. So I can't speak for other departments, and I know that was part of your question. I can only speak for how I was trained.
Yeah, absolutely.
In certain neighborhoods where there's just the same people doing the same stuff, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it, man. And I would be, I'd be trying to fool a fool by saying it's not there. It's there.
Yeah.
I think for the majority, the 99% of the good police officers, they want to do a good job.
They do, yeah.
They really do. Cross Point's full of cops and firemen. Access is full of
Yeah, we
cops
have
and
that,
firemen. Are there bad apples? Yeah, there are, and they get weeded out. You look at the Minnesota situation, and the media, the news is coming out like that guy had several
Which blows me away.
incidents.
Yep.
Where's the leadership
Yep.
there to say, whoa, time
That was
out? Why isn't this guy? Why isn't he off the street?
100%.
If he's constantly in a war zone, maybe he's seen war for
Yep.
too long. Let's pull him out of the downtown area and let's put him over here where he's chasing alarm calls.
Get him
speeders,
out.
Get him
Yes.
out.
Yeah. Well, now we're
So-
talking reform that I think
Yeah.
we all see needs to happen.
Yeah.
I think everybody agrees. How far we go, that's up to. I think debate is good. Everybody wants to silence everybody. It's like,
Right.
no, that's radical. Just let the discussions happen, and with that. So I appreciate you sharing that because that plays into it. As far as I believe that there's some bad apples. They're bad. They're secret. They get in there. They're not honest, and they view and treat people. I think that's a minority even in our country. But they tend to be the loudest or do the most horrible things that are graphic, that are horrible.
Yeah.
But then you got some I see good people, and I've seen this in the military too, where they see too much, and everyone's different. Some guys could do like 3 tours, come back,
Good.
they love their wife. I'm like, how do you do it? I've seen other guys 1 tour, they're never the same.
Yeah.
So you're speaking and you're speaking.
And I'll even add to, and this would be a question. I mean, you were in the your husband also, but I mean, is there training communities for like police officer? And I say that in essence, I heard somebody talk about like parts of New York or Chicago, where when you graduate, you get put into a training district, which is predominantly inner city.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you progress through your career, you get put into a quote unquote, retirement district,
Yes.
which is, I hate to say it, it's predominantly a white community that's well off, that's gated communities that don't allow that happen. I mean, is that a true thing? I'm assuming it is.
When you come out of the academy, you're put into a training phase. Normally it's about a 16-week training phase, and you're with 3 different training officers, and then when you go back to, you finish your training, you go back to the other one. Yeah, you're gonna get dumped in the middle of a war zone, because they wanna know if you can hang. Can you hit that mark? Are you able to diversify your thoughts and actions and stuff like that to go out there and do the job that the city has hired you to do? A lot of people don't make it out of training, for those reasons. They just can't hang. The problem nowadays is there's so many police officers there's so many people that aren't looking at that job as that used to be a very noble job. They don't want it anymore. Cops are taking bullets left and right. For what? $60,000 a year in the state of California, where it costs an arm and a leg to live. I'm gonna go put that business degree to work for me and go do a sales job where I'm getting commission and there's no caps on that commission. And guess what I'm not doing? I'm not dodging bullets. So they're hiring people. Are the hiring standards, have they gone down? I don't know. I'm not in that position to do it. If you're asking my honest opinion, I think they probably cut some corners to fill the beats. I mean, if you got a missing guy down there, if you got a missing area in Temecula that is not being policed, okay, because of lack of fund, lack of hiring, just people aren't there. That person who is working that area next to it, guess what they're doing? They're working a 12-hour shift because they got to cover it. Now they're tired. Now you're talking about tiredness, lack of judgment, inability to make proper decisions because they're not fresh. So you look at all that, you look at the shortages, and it all plays into that.
Well, we're seeing this, and I'm a numbers guy, I'll admit it. But Detroit, they went bankrupt, and so part of the consequences is they cut the police department by 20%. Correlation, crime's gone up. They're not getting training. There's still all kinds of what can be viewed as racist or police brutality. I don't think they're getting the best. I think there's some that are so frustrated or they're losing their minds. It reminds me of military stories when I've counseled guys that have been through the military, and I'm like, oh my God, they've seen horrible things and now they're responding horribly. They're not getting the help. And then the community responds with, it's just this ball that's just like, this is not good. So I'm seeing it in Detroit. I do have a question. This comes up in conversation. I think, Jamal, we talked about it, and I forget your response. So, you might have one to this, but some of the main communities that we see, urban environments, let's look at Minneapolis. You have high crime in Baltimore, incredibly high crime. And then, Chicago. Those are areas, this is where I'm curious, those are areas that predominantly they have black police chiefs, almost all of them, black mayors. And if you look at the congressmen or the Senate, they're primarily black people in those areas of power, right? I think what baffles me is, and again, this is where I might be clueless, or you're like, Brian, you're racist. I'm just gonna call it out, like I don't know. That's where I'm just like, I don't know, but I see this and I'm like, if anyone should have a heart to be like, we're gonna change this. Like this has gotta, is it politicians being politicians no matter what color your skin, you get a little bit of money, you get a little bit of politics and you're making side deals? Or is it like, what's happening there? What do you say to that? I'm just giving you conversations that have happened.
Right.
Where you hear that, or is it kind of like, yeah, I'm confused too, or like, whoa, let's look at this. Because I'm seeing
confused too.
I'm seeing these cities, and I'm like, how's that happening? Like, where's the leadership to say these are our people in the sense of like, we share this heartache. What are your even thoughts about that as far as why?
I'm just as confused. I don't know.
That's one of those.
We
gotta continue the debate.
Yeah, you got it right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, have no clue on that. Yeah.
And just that breaks my heart. I'm just letting you know that breaks my heart as far as like that's got to be solved. Like you're in power. Like you're a mayor.
Well,
you're a
how
police
much power
chief.
do they really have?
Great question.
That's everybody
And I wonder how
has
far
a
it goes
layer.
up. Yeah.
Everybody's got a boss and another boss and another boss. And how much power do they really have?
That's a
That
great
is
question.
the question. That's the root. We got to get right back to the root of the
I'd
problem.
love to ask that. I would love. That's where for the news to say, ask that question.
That's what you have to go back to and say, okay, did you try? Because maybe quite a few of them have tried and come up with brilliant ideas, but they were squashed down. They were shot down from the next level. Like, I'm not putting my neck out on the line for that. I'm not
You
doing
can
this.
even
I'm
go
not.
higher than that. I mean, we
Yeah.
had a black president for 8 years, and what was
In
done?
Department of Justice, we had two different black people in the Department of Justice, right? And that's another thing too that I don't know if it was in the black community or not, but Barack Obama. The reason I was stoked about Barack Obama, and I was stoked what he represented. I'm just speaking for me, like, whoo, like just 50, 60 years ago, it's like he got voted. Plenty of white people had to vote for him because we're still 60%, like.
Right.
And so policy-wise, probably some things I agree, some things I'm like, no, but I'm like, boy, what that represents for a nation. I was stoked on that. My mom, I remember, was stoked, and we talked about it, and then a little bit of surprise, as far as like, I thought in that racial equity, racial relations, I just thought, and what I heard from people was a little bit more would change, especially with the Department of Justice, and that would trickle down to urban environments. From my perspective, and I mainly have worked within LA with homeless there, in minority communities there, nothing has changed no matter who's in power. That's how I feel. Like, their issues are still the same, but I could be totally off on that. I'm just letting you know conversations that are
Yeah.
happening.
To me, if Barack Obama would try anything that Trump tried,
It would
it wouldn't have worked.
just got shut down.
It would have got shut down.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that people fault him left and right and left with a lot of his ideas. And that he just didn't have, even though he's the most powerful, you know, up in the White House, he still didn't have the power that he needed to have.
Yeah. That's that coming together as far as we gotta have the different cultures and ethnicities come together to solve problems. It can't just be this community to this community. We gotta come together.
Exactly.
And that's what you're saying. If the mask isn't pulled off, it's always gonna repeat itself. Is that accurate?
It is so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I think
It is true.
I
You
think
finally
he
gonna
had
see
the
that
authority,
person's
but I
face.
think the people, we have the power. We do. And I think we need to realize that. And if we can realize that we have the power, the government's got the authority, I think we can start to bring things together where we can, like we talked about, love on one another as opposed to hating on one another or judging one another or being so prideful that we can't see love beyond the tip of our nose.
I think what I've seen is hard is that I have an ideology and I don't wanna move from it.
Right.
Or I don't want to just acknowledge horrific things. Like, I remember talking to people, I'm like, oh, have you seen the video? No, it's too horrific. It's like, you probably need to see it.
Right.
We're afraid to be horrified as far as you need to see that. And what I'm seeing is, where I needed to change is, we got to start with some empathy and conversations and just allowing it to happen. And we're not a good society with that. We like to inflame, we like to debate, we like to demolish people, we like to build them up and tear them down. We almost enjoy seeing that, so we have to relearn, and even within our church, we have to relearn that to saying, let's not be inflammatory, let's be bridge builders, and let's not first try to figure out what do we agree on, but let's first just say we're human beings, let's hear each other's.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beginning of it.
Exactly.
But you don't want to tear down one community just so you can, try to build up another one. That's not right. You can't sit here and tear this group completely down to try to build this group up. It's not going to help anybody.
Yeah.
That's not going to help any situation. The comment my mom always used growing up, she was like, you know how many presidents I've lived through? And I'm like, probably a lot. She was like, and to be honest with you, my life hasn't changed significantly up or down with anybody that I voted for, right or wrong. So it's always has been hilarious to me. I mean, President Obama, first black president,
Yeah.
rah, rah, rah. But I mean, my life didn't change a whole lot. Can I be honest? My life really hasn't changed a whole lot with President Trump.
Yeah.
So I guess my point to that is for people to put that much authority over who's president, really?
Right.
Really? You want to sit around and argue and comment on social media over the president? Really? Because last time I checked, within this community, there's a God in heaven that's in charge of all of us. And if we're going to speak truth about it, that's the person that's in charge. So we got to get back to the root of this, where we are raising our kids up the way they're supposed to be raised. And it starts here, so that when the next 20 years, when you have your kids and your family, maybe we can see this change blossom to the right. Because for me, yeah, we're going to continue to vote, but how much of that is really going to change how much have your life really changed?
Well, and here's the problem that I see is, for a lot of us that aren't affected, like when you talk about that fear, and a lot of us that don't feel that fear, we don't want things to change because
That's right.
my life's pretty good,
That's it.
right? And so if I don't talk to you, right, and don't know about your fear,
It's true.
so if I don't know you, but then if I see you post something, I'm like, want to change things, I like things the way, you know?
That's
I mean, let's be honest, right? Let's be honest.
Not true.
Let's be honest. I know I'm talking about other people, not me. I would never. I'm talking about other people.
Somebody else.
Somebody else.
Somebody else, right?
I'm all those white people. It's like, oh yeah, I'm white. All right. No, this can happen within any culture. Once we, all of a sudden, then I can, and so that's why I'm amazed with Christians. Let's bring this to Christianity.
Right.
I'm amazed that we get more fired up over American politics
Yes. Yes.
than the gospel of Jesus.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
and the mission of Jesus, as far as he turned upside down every cultural thing. He addressed racism, huge, which the church struggled with from the beginning, by the way.
Right.
We had, right when the church was started, we had women need to be fed, and we had Jewish women, non-Jewish women, and there's favoritism, and they weren't getting food, and so they raised the ruckus, and the church had to address it. So racism there, Jesus addressed it. Women being diminished, children being diminished, where he said, let the children come to me. They were considered property. You had children so your land would be protected. So he addressed all these things, but we get fired up over things that I don't think God does, and so the church isn't at the forefront, of that. And so I'm okay with police reform. And at different levels that needs to happen. And if it's going to be good for Americans and for that community, and that community might need something different than this community, okay with that. Okay with other policy changes or just things. It's like, is it good for Americans, and does it help out brothers and sisters because we're all Americans? And let's look at our history saying, yeah, there's been damage in things done that we can help bridge. And we're afraid to have those conversations, but the more I know you, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can feel that. Where if we don't know each other, I think that's where we lack.
I think Byron said it best though, and you alluded to it as well. It starts in the family. And I was gonna wait to say this is, I remember I always had a soft spot in my heart for the youngsters, especially the young males. I remember when I was gone, there was a neighbor. It was almost like in Virginia, there was almost like when my dad was deployed, this gentleman was home. And he'd kind of take me under his wing and be like, hey man, grades are good, you listen to your mom and stuff like that. And it wasn't like, why are you checking up on me?
Right.
My dad's gone, who are you? It was like, he was genuine in his words. And so I always took that. He cared, and it was very, very apparent. His delivery of what he said was very caring, and I got that and I grasped it. So I always remember when it was coming, the end of my shift or something, graveyard shift, whatever, I would always sit like right here because the little bad boy bench was right there. The juveniles would get in trouble and they come and they get handcuffed to the bench or something. And I always took it as an opportunity to, hey, find out what's going on. 99% of the time, it would be, I don't have a father at home and I don't have a male father figure to put their foot on my butt saying, you shouldn't have. There was no accountability. And it's got to start in the home. It does. And unfortunately, it's not there. But if we know that's the problem, what can we do? You talk about change, Brian. You talked about change. Well, let's change that if we know that's the thing. And, how can we come together as a community and really start to break that down and say, okay, we know the problem. Here's a solution. And let's look at the bigger solution of it.
Well, I think there's people that are solving it, but our society doesn't. There's some amazing people, but we don't shine a light because they're not raising a ruckus. They're not doing crazy things, but there's some phenomenal people. We got to look to people that are that are also solving the problem. They're out there. Sometimes they don't get the credit. I'm talking within the police. There is communities where they have already done reform. They just don't get credit.
Right.
And then within these communities, there's people that are redoing education. Like I'm blown away in New York City. There's a charter school. I'm forgetting the name of it, but this man is doing a phenomenal job building a family, building education, graduating African Americans at high rates, getting them to amazing schools. And New York City wants to defund charter schools, not give parents the option. And I'm like, this could help out the Black community so much, because some parents are like, I want my kid to get out of here, but the city's saying you have no options. They have a 1,500 person waiting list in these communities, and that's what breaks my heart. Is there's people that are doing it. Jose, I could tell your brain was going. Did you have a thought, or as we're discussing this?
I don't know. It's just these. As the more we discuss things, it's just apparent that these are all just symptoms to a bigger problem, you know. And you know, you bringing up the church, like what is the church's responsibility? I'm gonna say responsibility. I can't think of another word. It's like what, and I think in our American history, the church has done a horrible job. Everything has continued to, you know, be segregated with, you know, Black churches, white churches, and there hasn't been a big enough effort to reconcile the races. You know what I mean? So like, where racial reconciliation, who has that responsibility? You know, as coming from a church. You know, you being a white pastor, like what is your responsibility as your mission from God to reach out to those in need? Like we see a need, but sometimes we don't want to see. Like you were saying, we don't want to see it. We don't want to see the severity of what's going on, or maybe sometimes we don't want to admit the bigger problem, because we're forced, like you were saying earlier, we're forced to pick a side. Because if we say, yeah, there's a racial problem, all of a sudden I'm a Christian that's being viewed as a liberal because I'm siding with this group. You know what I mean? And we do not want to be labeled that way, so we don't say anything, or we don't do our part to keep this going and keep this momentum going to create reform. You know what I mean? So I think we also have to think about it as a Christian, taking the Christian stand on what we having allegiance to Jesus first, you know, instead of, you know, because everything right now in this country is so political, instead of being left, right, Republican, Democrat, or this or that, you know.
Well, and I feel like as Christians, we need to form a pathway, because I don't necessarily want to partner with anyone on any side that's going to have also multiple ulterior motives.
Right.
And so I think that's what's dangerous, is that then you're wrapping it up into this political organization that as a church, I'm like, I don't. I think both sides sleep in the same bed and talk at different sides of their mouth, if I'm honest. You know, sometimes I'm like, wait a second, why are you pitting us average people against each other? Both of you, there's a lot of backroom things, crazy things going on that have kept it to where it's like either one in power, things stay the same, which makes me begin to say, so the church has to form its own pathway. So I am apprehensive to say, I'm going to back that organization, because I'm like, well, unless they follow Jesus Christ, they're going to mix in all kinds of things. That's going to be a convoluted message. As a Christian, how does this shape us, our action, moving forward on it, our engagement? I mean, Jamal, for you, what does that look like as far as how your faith forms this, and how do you bring your faith into something like this? Because I've seen especially young people become activists in different things in life, and especially at a young age, it's a great time to be, I think, an activist, to be honest. You got a lot of energy, you don't have kids, but you're forming ideas, and I think it's a great time. But I've also seen some kind of leave their faith behind and just be active in certain social issues. It could be a variety of ones. What does it look like for you to integrate your faith, and is that hard to integrate your faith on this type of a issue?
I feel like it is a tricky situation on how to integrate it with certain people, because they might not be religious or believe in any type of thing. So you definitely have to figure out your audience and who you're trying to appeal to and try to make that change in a certain way. But if you do see a certain audience that might favor to your faith or your religion, then you might be able to say things differently to them in order for them to understand it, versus if I look this way, she doesn't believe in anything, then I have to talk based off of just like humanity and normal, and like start thinking about science and all the other stuff that people believe in or might put their faith in and stuff. So
You got to know your audience.
yes, sir.
What does it look like for you moving forward? You're part of this discussion, and we appreciate you hanging around us older people. And no, I seriously, I just. And what does it look like for you moving forward? And I mean, what suggestions for you? Maybe it's like, hey, I just encourage you guys as you move forward. I mean, do you have what are some thoughts? And it might not be fully baked, but as you're wrestling with this or seeing this, what are some of your thoughts that for yourself personally as a Christian, or even for us?
Moving forward, I'm definitely thinking on how I personally can make a change in what's going on in the world, because ever since I was young, I've had elderly people come up to me and tell me that I'm gonna be the next president or something, and I didn't understand like why they would say that to me, because I never went into politics. I'm not political at all. Like I stay away from the topic. If you start talking about sports, I'm with it. But as I've gotten older and I've seen more and more on TV, read more and like social media, I'm starting to see more of where my passion would be put towards, or my energy would be put towards, in trying to help certain situations. And especially now, it's a lot on me personally. Like I've been battling these last 2 weeks specifically, or past month and a half, I'll go back to say, just thinking on like what I can do and like how do I go, because I've been getting so many different mixed emotions with everything that's going on. I've had friends that have never reached out to me in like this way of like, Jamal, I love you, I care for you, like everything that's going on, I'm here for you. And I just didn't know how to take that. And I know their intentions are good, but it's just like, why are we even at that point where you have to tell me like you love me, you care for me if anything happens, or like I was blind to it, now I see type stuff. And it's just, it breaks my heart. Like I just don't know how to really deal with it inside. And I've talked to my brothers, my dad, my friends, mom, and I think it really hit home with me like 3 weeks ago when she had called me on FaceTime, because I was up in El Segundo, I was doing protesting. So I went through 3 protests in a span of a week, still trying to do finals week there for school. And so she's calling me, she was like, Jamal, please be safe. And every time on FaceTime, my mom's crying. And it's like, I shouldn't have to live like this, of where every time I step out, both my parents are fearful that I might not be coming home, or they have to check in with me every 10 minutes, like, Jamal, are you safe? Are you good? And it's just like, how can I change this from happening? Because you always want to see your family members, your loved ones happy with whatever you're doing, but I'm seeing that they're happy but also crying. It's like, how do I deal with this and still try to deal with my social life and everything that I go through? And it's just a lot, right? But again, you just have to keep faith and always revert back to what you're taught and what's been put into you. And I've been blessed to have everything that I need to succeed in life. And so
It almost sounds like what I'm hearing you say is, I just need time to process and grieve. That's all I can do right now. And then things as hopefully move forward, things will get clarity. Is that pretty accurate? It's like, hey, if I'm honest right now, there's so much going on. I need time
definitely,
to
yes.
I think he exhibits his faith, like even when he's protesting, because his sign that he made, it says all lives matter. Blacks just have it harder.
I've not seen that one. That's a good one.
Yes.
A lot of
and
people,
a lot of people
walked up to
have
me.
come up to him and walked up to him and taken pictures with him with that sign. So even with his sign, his faith was coming out. He's already, I was like, yes, when I saw that sign. I was like, thank you, Lord, he's got it. he knows that every life is important, not just Black lives.
If it wasn't awkward, I'd get up and hug you.
Yeah.
That's so
I mean,
cool, man.
Blacks just have it harder.
Yeah.
That part cuts a little bit, but it is so true, because he's not blinded to the fact that we have it harder. He just knows that every life matters, and people were coming up, man, where did you get that sign from? And taking pictures and saying how much they enjoy. And to me, that's Christ. That's Christ. He came to seek and save everyone that was lost, not just some of us, just everyone. And so when he said all, that word in and of itself encompasses everyone. And so I was just like, wow, that's your faith right there. That's your faith coming through right there. And you didn't even realize it when you made that sign and how much attention it got. You know, that lets you know how Christ draws people and that tugs on your heart and pulls people together. And I think that was just like amazing.
Jesus says that blessed are the peacemakers, and it sounds like you have a unique ability maybe to speak truth while being a peacemaker, where some people speak truth but it's inflammatory and then it becomes divisive.
Right.
And that's a unique giftedness that we need, in the church, in relationships, in our society. So that's really, really cool there. Can I just ask you, everyone has these different opinions on the protests, and most people haven't even participated. Or they've only seen the riots and then they clump it. Again, we generalize, right? We just generalize, that's it, right? What has it been like for you, as far as good or bad, surprising or sad? Like, what's it personally been like for you?
The very first protest I went to, I wanted my friends to come with me, and they're African American as well. One of them gave me a hard time. He was like, I can't. I asked him why. Mm-hmm. And so he gave me his reasoning or his belief on why he didn't want to do it. And the main reason was the rioting. Like, he just thought it would lead to destruction, or he would be caught in something besides the message that we're trying to get out. And so when I sat down and talked to him, I was like, if you come, like, it's not going to be any of that. Like, and then I just basically explained how, like, I respected his decision, but then I also kind of was like, come on, like, I've known you longer, like, you're better than that, like, come on, let's go.
Screws down on it.
But I also gave him the option. I was like, I'm not forcing you to do anything, because of course you are your person. Like, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. I'll go by myself. And so after we sat down and talked, he was like, I do see your point. He was like, I was thinking, like, not in the right mindset. And so he ended up coming with me. But it's been nice to see in El Segundo, which is a predominantly white area city, the people that I went to school with, that I know, that I've either coached, taught, helped in after school programs, stand up for something that they believe in, even if their parents might not, or their grandparents might not believe in it. And it was just one of those things where when they called me out for the second one, they're like, Jamal, come march with us, come walk. And I'm like, okay, like I will stop everything I'm doing. Like I took off work early. I was like, I'm there. Like, you're calling on me. I'm all with it.
Wow.
And we marched for 3 hours that day. And so I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And then the third one, we had, I don't even know how many people we had, but we had a lot of people out there. And the police actually helped escort us through the city, and as we marched. And it was just nice to see, because when I first got there, I had such a hard time, or not a hard time, but I had a difficult time. I was the only Black person in my classrooms. Like, certain situations were just put on me, and it was a lot to deal with, especially at a young age. And so to see where it's going now, I was inspired myself, because it was something I've always wanted to do, was march as well, but I didn't know if I would have the numbers. And with them marching with me, it was like, okay, I have the numbers, people are with me, like, let's do this. And so.
And Jamal can only march, like, in areas, like, if anything pops off, rioting or something, Jamal knows that he has to get out of that kind of stuff. So his father and I, we've already told him
Yeah,
that.
that's my promise.
Like that
if
is,
it pops off,
you know,
you
if
have
it's
to
popped
go.
up,
Yeah.
you have got to go because you're not involved in that.
But it hasn't.
You are here.
No.
You
No,
are
it
here
hasn't.
to create the
Yeah,
message,
that's
not
awesome.
not the violence.
And I
Just
think-
we're not a part of that.
And would we all agree, like, racism, bad, we gotta go after it. Gotta go after it. Discuss it, go after it, unmask it. Eventually, we gotta get to some problem solving, or we're just gonna repeat. We talk about it, repeat, we talk about it, repeat. That rioting, looting, showing anger that destroys other people, or we've had, I think, over 20 people die now, and over half of those black in the midst of this. Rioting, looting, know it. If you're angry, rightfully so, but or is that something that's kind of like, Brian, you don't understand. Like, if my voice isn't heard, things are gonna burn. And I ask that honestly, as far as like, this is again, discussions I've had, where I've had people like, they pause, and I'm like, did I say something? They're like, I don't know if I totally agree with that. I'm like, walk me through, because in my mind, do we agree on something like that? I saw you were gonna answer, Jamal.
Yeah, I would say in the areas where it majorly impacted, or where let's just say Minnesota, Minneapolis, where it happened, for them to protest and riot out there, I can understand more, because it's hitting home. It's right where they're at, and they want to make their voices heard, make their voices heard the most. And so them rioting, it's just that the frustration, the pent up aggression, and they have to express it somehow in order for people to understand. They might, if I just go out and start speaking, okay, but if I destroy something to and then start speaking, I have your attention. Like, if everybody was talking right now and I just started mumbling, you wouldn't understand. But if I stood up and got loud and even hit a table, everybody would stop and look at me. And I think that's a type of reaction, or that they're trying to go after by destroying certain areas. Now, here in LA, with it, I don't really see the purpose of it. Like, it's not necessary. You can peacefully protest, march down the street, clog up the 110, whatever you want to do. But for you to just run into downtown areas and just start destroying for no reason, when it hasn't really hit us right now in this moment. Now, back when Rodney King, you go ahead.
Right.
But I think it's just like, that's just how I view it.
Okay. It's an interesting discussion, and that's one that I think we get into these awkward situations that I wonder take us from the real issue, but also I wonder at some point we're going to have to look at, right? As far as, I was watching one discussion, I've been watching a lot of YouTube, trying to see different interviews and interactions, and it can get very polarizing quickly, as far as just like this one guy was saying, like, listen, the instances I'm seeing, he says, are any of the black guys, are any of them completely innocent, walking the street and a cop just comes up? And the guy's like, that's not the point. The point is how they're being treated, or how they're being, and they got in this polarizing thing, as far as one just focused on, was a criminal act being done? You should have said yes or no, sir, and maybe they were belligerent, they panicked, ran away, things like that. The other one was saying, you're missing the issue. Like this is this is beyond, this is brutality. This is beyond that. This would not happen in a white neighborhood, suburban neighborhood. You don't ever see these films in a white neighborhood, right? But it became very polarizing, as far as just like, where is there in that, where we begin to, once the emotion, it's gonna die down. And that's where I worry that then, like you said, there's the emotions are being raised for a reason, but then it's gonna die down, and then it just goes silent, stays masked, things like that. And it's complex. It is complex. Are we afraid of those complexities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, do we keep picking out what part of the story that we want to argue? Because that's what I think that's what everybody will do. Everybody will pick out the piece that they want to argue. Whether you're Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, only the black community got it rough right now. So it's like, which part of this are you going to pick out? Where are you going to stand? And I think you're right. You have to unmask the whole thing. And you just have to sit down and say, yep, he got arrested for something. I'm assuming cops just didn't show up just for no reason. But what happened shouldn't have happened. And what happened has been happening. So how do we start to get better? And let's stop picking out everybody the little faults, bad apples back, a bad cop here, a bad cop there, this person probably shouldn't have been in that community when he was like. We can do that all day. We can keep repeating.
That's what's happening.
And that's what's happening.
Stories that kind of
right.
It's like,
well, you're in this camp or you're in this camp, and it's like, and I think you kind of said it earlier. Let's be people of faith first. I think leading with our faith is probably the best thing that we can do, and come from a point of loving people and caring about people. Whether you agree with my, what I'm saying or not, I'm going to treat you the way I would want to be treated. And let's talk about it. Let's start. I don't know how to fix it.
Kind of where we're at right now.
It's kind of where we're at.
Can we agree with that? We're just in a broken, fragmented area, and come up.
I think I was listening to a message by Bishop T.D. Jakes, and I kept thinking Onesimus is coming. And it's the book of Philemon, where Onesimus is a slave, and I believe the story, he runs away.
Yep.
And Philemon is mad and upset because he ran away. But he ran into Paul, and Paul converted him. And he said, now look, Philemon, I know you mad at Onesimus. I know you upset with him because you didn't get your work out of him. But he's worth more to you since he's been with me. He's been converted. And he's no longer a slave. He's a brother. He's one of us now. And I think the question is, can we all sit around with people that don't look like us, with people that not from the same background of us, but can we all sit around and say, Onesimus is now a brother. Yep, he did some stuff that was wrong. He did some stuff that wasn't, but can we accept this person as a brother, regardless of what it is? Can we now start to open the book and say, you know what? We was wrong. Shouldn't have ever said that. Yep. Shouldn't have ever did that years ago. Yep. These people who did this 40, 50 years ago. Yep. I'm sorry, but can I draw a line in the sand and between me and you and whoever else, start from here on out and make it better? And I think that's kind of where we're at.
Love that. I love that illustration.
Because I think Onesimus is coming. And I think Paul wrote and said, look, I need for you to accept him as your brother, not as your slave. I need for you to do this. He said, because you owe me. Why?
Yeah, Paul used a little guilt.
Paul guilted him into it. He said, you kind of owe me. We've been through some things. So I'm sending somebody to you that can help you, but he's going to need some help. But he's not coming back to you as his slave. He's coming back to you as his brother. So my first thought process, to close it up was like, Onesimus is coming. I don't know what that looks like. It's coming as people that's mad, frustrated. It's going to be some people that's coming as loving and then that's kind. But I think it's, for the Christian community to stop and kind of weed out, we're not going to argue with you about that. But we're going to love you in such a way that we can slowly keep moving things forward. So.
And I wonder if, and maybe I'm generalizing too much, and I don't like to generalize because I just preached on not generalizing, but I'm going to generalize because I'm forgiven by Jesus. So I'm good. No.
Amen.
But I want to maybe to make a point as far as I wonder if, and I'm trying to think of interactions I've had with black pastors over the years, if there's a sense of, are you really sincere? From the black community, black pastors, like white pastors come like, what could you do? Are you really sincere? Because then it's like, you need some money? Or we're going to come in and solve it for you. Like we're the smart ones. We're going to come in. I wonder if it's been a little, I just wonder And then I wonder for some white pastors where there's been a little bit of throwing the line out, no bite. It's like, super skeptical of me, as far as, and so it's been difficult. I'll just say from my perspective, it's been very difficult to reach out and to create conversations and print. It's almost easier not to do with pastors. But I'll also say this, that pastors in general are very insecure and they don't even like talking from the street over to street over because they feel like you're going to steal their congregants. And now we're going cross-cultural where they don't know my experience, I don't know theirs, so they could just be coming like, I don't want to talk to this guy. So the complexity I feel like goes up. So that's been my experience where, man, it's tough to even bridge. And especially I've gone into, because churches do a lot in urban environments, but it's difficult. And I wonder if there's a sense of like, we don't know if you're really sincere, if you're just trying to feel good, throw some money into it. So that's been my experience. Now we're focused on the church now.
Right.
And honestly, that's what I don't know what to do. It's like, okay, what does that really look like? Don't know. So maybe that is what it is right now. These conversations just need to.
Yeah, I know we talked last week, and I think the big thing that came out, well, one thing that came out of it was when you see something, say something. If somebody is buying a house and they make the comment that, I don't want to live in, a neighborhood where, there's these people or these people. The loan officer hear that, say, you know what? Let that person go get a loan somewhere else. I don't want to have nothing to do with it. If you see something, say something.
We can't be silent anymore.
Right. And I think we're at the point where you're on the construction site and you're laughing with your buddies and somebody, we've all heard the Mexican, the black, the white jokes. We've all heard it, right? But I think there's a line that comedians can get up on stage and they can make jokes and say stuff and get away with it. But there's a point on the job site where we can't let it ride no more. We can't let it go no more. And I think it's right now your generation who's like, I'm not laughing at that no more, bro. That's wrong. And I think it's our generation that we can now honestly speak up and say, nah, bro, I get where you're coming from, but that's kind of rude. And we don't have to be confrontational. We don't have to be, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But we can be so honest at this point because we're now having these conversations with our wives and family behind closed doors. Yep. Whereas before, it just got closed and nobody said anything. Yep. But now, that's open. That's been rocked. It's open now. It's completely open. So I think that's kind of where we're at. That's how do we get there as a church? I don't know. But I think it starts, like this.
I hear you saying that. But to me, the jokes were never funny. I've always had a zero tolerance for jokes. Because underneath the jokes, it goes back to the heart. Out of the mouth, the heart speaketh.
Right.
And you may claim that you're joking.
Right.
But where did that come from?
Where did that come from? Right.
I'm always to the root.
Right.
I'm always getting to the root of the problem. Where did that come from? So that's why no jokes, and I don't care of any race.
Right.
I don't want to hear any of it.
Right.
And when I say zero tolerance, in the workplace, I mean it. I do mean it. Right. Because I will not have it.
I know. I was in the Marine Corps. It was bad.
In my house, amongst my friends, we will call you out.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to call you out long before this was a conversation.
Right.
Because I think that sometimes that in and of itself shows you.
Allowed it. Right.
Shows you and tells you that
it
tells you that it's okay to treat someone less than or to classify someone or to target someone or to label someone. It's never okay to do that. It's never okay. We're all humans.
Right.
We all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all want to thrive. We don't want to just survive. We want to thrive.
Right.
And everyone should have that opportunity to do that.
And it's not a matter of, hey, lighten up.
Yeah.
No, have some respect.
Exactly. Have some respect.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And
I
Brian
agree.
and I talk about this a lot. We speak oftentimes, it's people's delivery.
Mhm.
You know, and I can say one thing and you can say one thing. Somebody's gonna, hear it two different ways. But if we can come at it from a sense of love and respect, like for instance, I never got in a lot of fights when I was a police officer. I just didn't. I don't want to fight. I spent too much time hiring them.
Right, yeah.
But there's some guys that are looking for it.
There are.
It's pristine.
And I think the way I got out of that was just talk to them with respect.
Mhm.
Hey man, do you got a minute? I'd like to talk to you. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm just telling you that right now. I'd like to chat with you though. That would disarm people.
Right.
That would take that barrier down. Hey, my name is Brian. It's not, I'm Officer Bruce.
Right.
I've positioned myself as another human, not as a authority figure. So it's just delivery to people. And I got along, with a lot of people, and a lot of people would give me what I need. And hey, you made a mistake back there. You went in a fight or something, then you put your hands on her. I don't know what you guys got going on. And I understand there's probably a lot of stress. You can't do that. Would you agree that you can't? Yeah. Okay. There's a consequence here. You're gonna have to go to jail. Okay. All right. You're right, man. I made a mistake. You do what you got to do. And 9 out of 10 times, at the end, they're thanking me for arresting them. I never had to thank for arresting you. What I get thanked for was treating with kindness and respect. And there needs to be more of that.
And you de-escalated the system.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, and it just goes back to the training.
That's right. It goes back to the
Yeah.
training because you can handle things so much better
And there
when you
needs
just
to be
calm it down.
emotional intelligence training too, right? We talked about that a lot in our meetings. Is when you get it. In my time, I've never, ever heard that it's okay to put your knee on somebody's neck that's in handcuffs. We want to talk about that. We can talk about that. I'll kick it off. It was always a given. In the Marine Corps, you're with your brothers. You're in a certain company. Hey, if I get out of line, you going back. Okay. If there was a use of force situation, and we see any of this, and I'm looking around this whole room, anybody's getting out of line, you absolutely have permission to pull me off. I'm getting
Nobody
way too
did that to us.
emotionally
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
My emotional intelligence is out the
Exactly.
window, and I need to be ganked. And there needs to be more of that. And a lot of my police officer friends, a lot of us are retired now, but we just call each other on the phone like, what was that?
Exactly.
Never trained, never learned that in the academy.
We
Never saw it. It's just yeah.
I think that's where, we can't do everything tonight, but maybe we need to continue to have more conversations, but get into what does it look like? There's going to be educational things. There's going to be relationship things. There's going to be reforming. There's going to be responsibility in the white community. There's going to be responsibility in the black community. When we get to that time to say, what does all that look like and who plays what role? Because everyone's going to have expertise. Like, I can do the educational piece. I would love to talk to especially in urban inner city environments, what do the leaders need? How do we partner? That would be phenomenal to eventually get there saying that how can the church be on the forefront? How can we support? How do we have these, just all these complexities would be amazing to, and then begin to work on them. Like our church, I was talking to someone like, well, you're going to talk about what are you going to do? And I go, I don't know. I need to be informed first so it's not coming off as insincere. Like, there you go. Okay, we're good. No guilt. We get to move forward. It's like, but I go,
Check box.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking too.
But I don't know, but I'd love to get in there, and when everything cools down, I'd love to still be working in the silence. And just like you said, I'm not waiting for politicians. We're gonna get in there, and then we're just gonna, and we won't see change in 6 months, but in 6 years, and there'll be no news media, but I can go to bed at night saying, whatever other people are doing, we were a part of.
That's
right?
right.
We saw
That's
a little
right.
community change, or we
Right.
saw a little.
Right.
We saw our team
Yeah.
Right.
be united as one.
Right.
Even if it just starts with this little team and then it spreads and keeps spreading, and next thing you know, it's a community.
And that's where I'm hopeful. This is what Martin Luther King Jr. talked about. that there has to be a continuation, which is going to take leadership, which we're lacking in our country. So you got to rise, and if you're called to it, the Lord's called you to it, or your parents have trained you for it, leaders are needed, always will be needed, right? That's what I'm excited about. So there's hope, you know, a lot of hope. Has there been anything, I want to be able to give time, and I know it's been a little while, that we haven't talked about, or just even thoughts are like, you know what, this is just on my heart as we're sharing with her about this process, or a topic or things that you're like, I think it's important to at least lay it out here as we're discussing something.
Talked about a lot.
I was gonna say we talked about a lot.
A good start.
Talked about a lot.
A good start.
One thing that came to my mind, and I heard somebody talk about it, and it was definitions, and it was like if you read the definitions of black and what it means, and if you one of the last definitions of black, you know, in the dictionary it says opposite of white. Black being dark, you know, words like black ball, black market, black, and whatever you want to add to it, and the word white meaning pure, meaning like kind, honest, or whatever. We got to get to a point in the community, both black and white, when that first graders or second graders are doing definitions, and Jamal gets up and reads the definitions of what black mean, and the beautiful little blonde-haired white girl gets up and reads the definitions of white, that he doesn't feel bad. He didn't create them definitions. But if somebody don't know when they're starting out and you read that, you're like, he's reading all these things that mean black. And then the last one, it says opposite of white. You feel less than.
It's an issue.
This is the beauty of being honest, where we can come together and say, what can I learn? What can I say? And I think what's important, and I'll speak specifically to our church, is, and I don't want to overstate this. We might have to edit this. I don't know. But there's going to be people like, you're being overly sensitive. I don't think they're going to last at Access. They're going to go to a different church. Because it's exactly what Christ called us to, is to be sensitive to one another. As much as we can. Now, if there's a line where I can't, it's fine. But the Bible says, as much as you can.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of these kind of conversations. Like, even as a pastor, I hear that, I'm like, whoa, I've got to be so good with my words. And I would love it as I'm preaching, if I say something, for someone to like pull me aside, and then love to be like, don't say that again. Okay, what do I say? Awesome. You know what I mean? But I think there's a fear there. But that, what a beautiful community where we'd be like, hey, what's going to help communicate? Because we're trying to communicate it well.
Yeah.
That would be a beautiful thing. So many things are shared that I'm like, I just didn't know. Like I could see it in your body, the fear. I'm just like, that's a world, that's a whole. And what's crazy is I've been exposed to a lot of things. So there's, like, my wife grew up white suburbia kind of a thing. So I'm thinking, like, if I grew up with a lot of stuff, but I'm still kind of like, and I hear you, and I'm like, oh, this gap is
Right.
of the emotional connection is like,
So disconnected.
that's what I'm leaving with. And I guess some of the things is like, what are we leaving with? I'm just leaving with like, oh, the gap's bigger than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
And then the nuanced things, of, maybe if I don't agree with some of the signs of the protest, like I saw some signs, I'm like, that's horrible. But maybe it's like, too bad, I got to hit the higher cause and just overlook those things. And so it's testing those things where I'm like, how do we get to the root as I'm hearing this? And so those are some things that are hitting me. I'm kind of leaving with tonight. What about for the rest of us? Is there anything particular what we're kind of leaving with tonight?
I think one thing that struck me, and if I'm honest, got me a little emotional, was one time coming off the freeway at Rancho Cal, and you get off Rancho Cal, go east, and go up Yanez, and the protesters. Yeah, I'm just driving along, my truck, and just trying to get home or anything like that. And I support. Even Deegan was like, "Hey, Dad, can we go down?" And I was like, "Yeah, we can. I'd like to expose you to this." But a couple people jumped out, and they're hitting my car and this and that, and I'm like, "All right, I don't care about my car. The car's replaceable. I don't want you to get hit first and foremost. I respect you, but it almost brought you to tears. Like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This really is bad."
It is. Yeah.
And Deegan, one of the other times Deegan was with me, and he's like, "Dad, can you explain this to me?" And I was like, "I'm gonna do the best I can, but I'm not gonna hit the mark on this. I'm gonna be off." And so we explained it to him. And then just the other night, Black Angus got tagged up, and we saw a group of people out there with buckets, black, white, Hispanic, like, and they're wearing Black Lives Matter shirts.
Yeah.
And they're jumping and they're doing this, and it's like, Deegan was there, and I was like, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
I couldn't have explained it any better than pointing over there to my left to show them.
That'll never make it on the news.
Nope. And that's
That'll never make it on the
travesty.
news.
That's
and
right.
That's where we got to inform and show, because the news wants to make it inflammatory for all sides.
Yep.
But there's amazing stories.
Doesn't sell.
Yeah, it doesn't sell, but there's amazing things happening. And so,
Yeah.
what's the rest of us? What do we kind of feel like we're leaving with today?
For me, it's just the importance of language. There's all sorts of constructs that people try to, that exist in American culture, especially when now you have media trying to paint one picture, social media, like you have so many different things, and just remembering to bring all that down to a human level of having a conversation, and having the importance of language, the importance of what my words will do to you, and I think a lot of times we forget that. Like, we forget that the way I communicate can affect you, can affect the person I'm speaking to, and it's ignorance on my part because I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know their experience. I don't know their fears, their thoughts, So I think it's just a reminder of, we have to bring this situation down to really understand our fellow human beings and what they're experiencing.
And it's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I think mine is just, it's okay. It's okay for you to like Chevy and I like Ford. It's okay for you to. I mean, honestly, I think we've gotten to a point where we can't disagree as adults anymore, and it's frustrating. It's like only thing we can disagree is sports. We can argue about football, we can argue about basketball, we can argue about all this stuff, but when it comes anything outside of that realm, people literally take it personal. Like it's my opinion, it's your opinion. I'm probably not all the way right, you not all the way right, but can we agree that, this little bit piece is probably true, or your little bit is probably true, and it's okay. And we don't have to solve it right here, right now. But we can disagree and still get along with each other, and still laugh, and still joke. And
But here's the thing that I find though is as we have these conversations, sometimes we realize we don't disagree as much as it's language. So we think we disagree, and then it's like, oh wait, okay, well, oh we do. Just the way you were saying it, or the way you were saying it, made it sound like there's this division.
Right.
And that's what I find is that rhetoric, and what I hate about posting. and I got grief because I didn't post right away, but I'm like, no, you put it on there, and knowing to choose words, and also let's wait to see. I'm not super reactionary.
Right.
I'm always a point like
Right.
slow it down. But there's a lot of great. But here's the other thing too is, I think there's unity within diversity, but there's also division.
Yeah.
right? Unity, diversity and unity means this. We're unified to the end result, but we're different in how we want to get there.
Right.
Division is you want this and I want that. Oh, we're not. And if we go back to the civil rights movement, I mean, that's where Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., you saw that there wasn't diversity and unity. You had some divisive, especially early on, right? I know later on there's some changes with Malcolm X, but barring that, you saw that. So that's what I'm trying to figure out is where are we unified as far as the end result? Yeah, we want equality. We want the police to be able to do their jobs, but do it respectfully, do it evenly, do it well trained. Keep your head because there's no excuse as far as, well, they did a criminal act. You can't go that far. That doesn't give you the right, like where we have this, and then what's police reform? There might be a lot of diversity within that, but we all want it. Or, racial reconciliation. There's some people that don't though. And that's where I'm like, yeah, if you're not with us in some of this stuff, especially what God wants to do,
Right.
then I'm like, it is a different vision.
Right.
And so that's what's kind of interesting to talk that through, as far as just like, and here's what's interesting is, and again, tell me if I'm off. This is why I like conversations. Because I don't know, I don't know. But in general, as the majority, right, for white people, masking it, being like, the problem will kind of take care of itself. Now you have that I consider a strong undercurrent in the black community. It's like, we'll go back to segregation. we're 15% of neighborhoods. What's that? 50 million, 60 million? That's a little bit stronger than before, economy-wise. Yeah, we'll take our athletes, 55% by the way, not 70%. I looked up the stats. 55%, right? 55%, yeah, we'll take all that money, all of our college athletes, and it will go, like, you're seeing this undercurrent, the amount of segregation happening with the graduation ceremonies that are starting, Ivy League schools, they're all starting to have segregated, and it's by people in the black community being like, we'll do it ourselves then, right? Now you can say, I know some people watching, you got liberalism, conservative, all right, I'll give you that. But we're starting to see this, and I always tend to think, well, Martin Luther King Jr., I just wonder what you like, that dream thing, like, is this all a part of it, or are we missing some pieces? So those are the things that kind of go through the mind. I'm like, these undercurrents that are interesting, where if we don't come together, then all of a sudden we're gonna get groups that are like, fine, we'll actually go back to, but we'll self-impose.
Right.
Which I don't think is healthy, because then we don't know one another and then we're lobbing bombs, right?
Translation.
Yeah, I think if you go back to your faith, if you think that heaven is going to be segregated,
You're out.
you're
You ain't gonna
lost.
be there. You ain't gonna be there.
You're lost. When God said He created man in His image,
Yeah.
He created us all in His image. God doesn't make mistakes.
Yep.
You're either going to believe some of what He says or none of what He
Yeah.
says. I mean, you got to either believe all or nothing. That is where that all or nothing comes in at, in your faith. And so if you think that here on earth, let your kingdom come, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, if you think that this world is not a true reflection of what heaven is going to look like, what all of us together, that's the beauty of it. God didn't make every animal the same, or every person the same, or every one of us the same shades of color. He made us uniquely, beautifully, and wonderfully made. And I'm telling you, I'm walking away with, I'm proud of who I am. I'm telling you, there are probably lots of African Americans that are marching forward and saying they're proud of who they are, because I know that God doesn't make a mistake, and that we are who we are. And I often tell my kids how beautiful and wonderful they are, because they are. And God knows it. So I'm telling you, the heart, you still got to go back to the heart. Over 67 verses in the Bible talks about the heart. Why do you think He talks about the heart so much? Man looks on the outside, God looks at the heart. Create in me a clean heart and renew the right spirit within me. Why do you think there's so much conversation about the heart? The heart is a treacherous thing. Out of the heart, the mouth speaking. All of that is scripture.
And that's where the church, I think, could be
Yeah.
on the forefront of bringing the kingdom of heaven down.
Right.
And I think that we're going to have to, when I talk about that diversity and unity, we're going to have to, there's some people that are divided. It's like, let's go back to segregate. I mean, in the upper echelons of academia right now, huge push. And so that's where the church can say, no, we're going to come in a peaceful, and we're going to unite, and for us to be on the forefront. But we've got to have honest conversations in the church. Because honestly, like when I hear either of you say, and you both have said it now, feeling less than, and if we've done something, like to me, it's just like, what? Like, stop the whole thing. We've got family members that are saying, overlooked, feeling less than. We've got to take care of that in the church, and that's all I can control, and then we can move forward. So those are the things that resonate in me when I hear that. I've been like, whatever we're doing to produce that, whether it's all of us, some of it, it's got to go because we got to bring the kingdom of heaven so they see Jesus in what we're doing. Leaving here tonight with thoughts, feelings, anything like that. Jamal, for you, what has this experience been like, and what are you kind of leaving with?
I think this has been a great experience. I've never sat down in a setting like this and talked about real world issues in this type of situations, and I enjoyed it actually. And so this is something I would want to do more of, getting to know people, talking, sitting down, and actually hearing stories, sides, views, because I can listen to you, I can agree, and like we can agree on certain different things, or we can agree.
He said agree with a smile. He was looking at you. I can agree with it.
Like we can keep it pushing. Like I'm not gonna see you in a different way.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with my viewpoint on things. Like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed it, and moving forward, like this is something I'll try to do with my friends as well. Of like sitting down. Like we do it more often now. Like we'll have lunch together, dinner, and we'll sit around a table and just start talking about stuff that's going on. And I think it's healthy to start the movement and the change that we all want to see.
Watch over us. Watch over us.
Thanks for joining us. For more resources, to get involved, or to invest in the ministries at Access Church, visit gotoaccesschurch.com. Take care.